Are you thinking of buying a new driver? Well, I'm not surprised. There's a whole host of new drivers about to be launched, and for many golfers, the temptation will be too hard to resist. But before you part with your hard-earned cash, make sure you ask yourself the 5 questions I'm going to ask in this video, filmed at the incredible Elsa course at Trump Turnberry. Number 3 is probably the most important, but all 5 will have a bearing on your decision. So be honest with yourself, and only then will you know if a new driver has the potential to solve all your problems. Question 1, is driving actually the worst part of your game? There's a lot of us probably think that driving is the worst part of a game, but how do you actually compare to other golfers of your handicap ability and maybe the handicap bracket down if that's something that you're aspiring to? Because you might think that driving is the worst part of your game, but actually the money that you've allocated to spend on a new driver could possibly be better spent in another part of the bag, maybe a set of irons or a set of wedges to improve the worst part of your game. Access to data is critical here. I'm an Arcos user, so I've got access to a host of different stats and information about how I drive the golf ball. If you want to get your hands on the Arcos smart sensors that give you access to that data, I've put some links in the description below where you can get your hands on those for the best price in your area. And it gives you a whole wealth of information, whether it's sort of distance versus accuracy, your common miss, left or right. But I think the most important one is strokes gained, so you can see how you compare with other golfers of a similar ability. And actually you can see from my stats that driving is probably the worst part of my game and potentially a candidate for a new driver. But that information should sort of help you understand your tendency with the driver, and maybe there's other ways you could go about fixing your faults with the driver that don't involve having to spend £600 or dollars on a new driver. So for example, if you look at your stats or you know, maybe even if you just play a few rounds and make some notes after you finish, maybe, you know, for example, if you're missing fairways to the left, it could be that you could just make some adjustments to your current driver. Assuming it's not that old, you should have some adjustability on here that allows you to maybe tweak the face angle slightly. So maybe you can open the face angle, that'll give you more of a right bias to your shots. Maybe a little bit of loft might give you a little bit more carry distance. Maybe you could change the internal weighting of your driver to give you a slightly different shot shape. So there's a few things that you should think about with your current driver. Maybe if your swing's changed a little bit or your tendency under pressure has changed a little bit, you should be able to adjust your current driver to maybe influence or improve some of the stats that you've got at the moment. But if there's a lot of red flags throughout your data, if you're missing more fairways than you're hitting, if you're always being outdriven by your friends and your playing partners, that could therefore make a case for investing in a new driver that's well custom fitted and could address some of the shortfalls in your data and turn it around in your favour. Okay, the next question is, what is your budget? Let's say you've weighed up the pros and cons and you've decided, yep, you want to buy a new driver. When you go and buy one, you might be surprised to learn that the price of modern day premium drivers is pretty expensive. You know, they're around about the £600, $650 mark, which for the sake of being a few extra yards down the fairway is a relatively difficult investment to justify. Don't get it wrong, these premium drivers, the drivers played by the world's best players, are expensive for a reason. They give you that total performance that's going to give you distance and accuracy, especially when custom fitted. And obviously that's going to give you a lot more enjoyment of the game. But it's important to recognise that if you are in the market for a new driver, there are some more affordable alternatives out there. Whether it's a brand new driver from a more affordable brand, we're seeing a lot larger number of brands offering some really impressive drivers at a slightly lower price point. I check out the buying guides on the Golf Monthly website because there's a lot of information there about some more affordable drivers. Another option to go down is that second-hand route. We've seen, from our testing this year, there's definitely some absolute crackers in the second-hand market that will still do a decent job in terms of performance that come in at a much lower price. So it's important to recognise there are alternatives out there. If you're looking to buy a new driver, you don't have to go all out and spend top dollar on the most expensive drivers to get some decent performance, especially if your driver is quite a few years old and wasn't custom fitted. Question 3, and arguably the most important, is, are you planning a technique change? Now, ideally, your driver would be custom fitted to suit your swing rather than you adapting your swing to suit your driver. At this time of the year, the off season, a lot of golfers are going through a series of lessons to try and improve their swing, and as a result, that will change the performance characteristics of your club. It will likely change the way you're delivering the club into the ball, whether it's your attack angles changing, your path changing, and that will have an impact on the spin rates, the dispersion, the ball flight, and the amount of distance that you can generate. So it's important that your driver is always fully optimized to your swing, and therefore if you are changing your swing, you might need to think about when you buy a new driver or have the potential to adjust your current driver. Let's face it, if your driver is relatively new, it should have some adjustable features that can accommodate a technique change to a degree. The effect is relatively limited if you're making really big wholesale changes to your swing, having a big differential in your path or your attack angle. Perhaps your new driver won't be able to be optimized for your new swing. But it's important you do things in the right order. So if you are planning a technique change, but you're also thinking about buying a new driver, my advice to you would be implement the new swing changes first and then invest in the new driver that accommodates your new swing. That's going to make sure that your driver is then fully optimized for your new and hopefully improved technique. And the added benefit of that is the fact that you'll be more encouraged or inclined to stick with those changes that you're making in conjunction with your PGA Pro. If you're working on the right things, you know your driver is then optimized for your new swing, you're less likely to go into your old habits and revert back to your old swing, which you know was holding you back. So the sort of added benefit of doing it in that order, make those technique changes first and then consider buying a new driver. I'm going to take a break from the video to remind you, if you're enjoying what you're watching, please do click the like button, it really helps us out. And if you haven't already, do subscribe to the Golf Monthly YouTube channel. The next question is, was your driver custom fitted for you? It's a simple yes or no question, and if the answer is no, the chances are you've been missing out on performance by having a driver that's not been fully optimized for your game. Now, custom fitting process is something that happens where the driver gets really fine-tuned to your very specific and unique demands. Every golfer swings and delivers the club in a very specific way, and a custom fitting is the only way that you're going to really dial in those key parameters of things like launch, spin access, which affects the way the ball curves through the air, and height and things like that. So if you haven't been custom fitted for your driver, the chances are those key parameters haven't been optimized and you're going to be missing out on performance. Now, don't get me wrong, a driver off the shelf could work relatively well, but the only way you're going to know for sure that your driver is completely maxed out to its potential is to go through that custom fitting process. It's going to give you that extra confidence that you need, that you're standing over the ball, you know that the driver you've got in your hands is fully maxed out in terms of matching up to your swing and going to give you the best combination of distance and accuracy that's hopefully going to improve your driving. Now, the last question is, why do you want to buy a new driver? This ties into our deeper motivation behind wanting a new driver. Are you fed up of being outdriven by your mates? Well, maybe some speed training would help. Are you sick of constantly missing fairways? Well, maybe a series of lessons would be a more cost-effective way of straightening out your drives. Do you simply just want the latest and greatest driver that all the best players in the world are using? If that's you, it sounds like you've already made your mind up. But just because a new driver works in the hands of Rory McIlroy every year doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for you in the same way. And also, when you buy a new driver, don't expect to be another 10, 15 yards further down the fairway. Especially if your driver is relatively new and well custom fitted, the chances are the gains that you experience are going to be pretty minor. So it's important to sort of manage your expectations in terms of what a new driver can give you. Yes, it's a lovely thing to have, and the chances are you will be a little bit longer and a little bit straighter, or maybe a little bit of both. But I don't think it's going to completely necessarily revolutionise your game. But there's no question, the feeling of buying and hitting a new driver is unmatched. So I know it's going to be hard to resist, but just answer these 5 questions in your mind before you go make that purchase, and then you'll be confident it's the right decision for you.